I am Taylor, and you are listening to the Surviving Maine Podcast. And I know you're listening today because we have no video. Today, I'm interviewing the person voted out in episode 6 of Surviving Maine Season 3, and that person lives very close to me, so we did this interview in person in this studio, and we did not video record it. This is one of my best friends in the world. So sad that she got voted out here, but so glad she made the jury. Here is my interview with Trisha. I am here, live and in person, with the first member of the jury of Surviving Maine Season 3, Trisha.
Hello.
Trisha, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
So right now, as we sit here together, it has been about 2 months or maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What the it's been I'm like, what date is it? It's been about 2 months since you played Surviving Maine.
Yeah.
Here we are in Southern California together again. And
yes, we know each other.
we do. So why don't we start there? Why don't we start with how you came to be cast on Surviving Maine? What happened? Tell us the story.
Okay, so, I mean, it's pretty short. One day, Taylor texted me and said, "Are you busy next weekend?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, why?" And she texted back, "Because somebody dropped out of Surviving Maine and they need another woman." And I was like, you know what? I didn't respond right away, but I was like looking at flights, seeing if I had enough airline miles, and I was like, you know what? I think I could swing this.
As Trisha was not responding, in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I bet she's looking up flights.
You thought right. Because I had watched, the last season of Surviving Maine that you had edited, and it was great. And I was like, I want to do this. It seems like fun. Yes. Seems like an experience.
Yes. Trisha's all about experiences and adventures. And you can be pretty spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the weekend free and I had the miles, so why not?
Yes. I was so glad that I asked you.
Me too.
I thought that you might, because you did. You were a big fan of season 2.
More than Survivor regular.
Yes, you were the super fan of Surviving Maine, and everybody else was Survivor super fans.
Yeah. I wish I learned more, though, from Surviving Maine in terms of my gameplay.
Oh. Okay. So let's talk about then. You decided to go. What happens when you get there? Like, what are your first impressions of people? Anything you want to say about those moments leading up to meeting everybody at the flags?
Well, I got there earlier than I was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to hide the fact that I was familiar with Taylor and Becky from the other contestant. Is there survivor? What is there a term?
I guess contestants, survivors. I don't know.
I mean, from the other folks. I didn't want them to know. And I remember, like, they said, just sit in the grass over there. And who else was on the grass? Andy was there. Jess, I think, came a little bit later. Mike showed up. I remember when Matt showed up, and I think who was it that was sitting over there? Maybe it was John. And I remember seeing Andy and being like, he's dressed interestingly. Because I thought we were supposed to, I thought we were supposed to wear a color or something, a color.
Yeah, he wasn't wearing gray.
He wasn't wearing gray. He was wearing like a fancy print. I don't even remember what was on there. I think there was
some kind of collared shirt.
Yeah, it was a button-up collared shirt, and I was like, this person looks interesting.
Silly shorts too, like patterned shorts.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
And a raccoon hat. Did he have the raccoon?
I don't think he had it on yet. He didn't have it on yet, but he had done his research. Later on, we found out, but then we can't talk. But like, I felt like, we made eye contact, and he seemed friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And right then I knew I wanted to work with him.
No.
Just kidding, I didn't. Yeah, and I felt like everyone was sitting up, and I was just like, I'm just going to lay down. And that's basically it. When we walked over, I was waiting for a long time.
'cause you were in the
Everyone
last
just,
group,
I
yeah.
was, and everyone just kept leaving, going to not camp, but what?
At the I don't know.
They went
flags.
they were going to the flags, and I'm just like, when am I going to go? I'm just sitting out there in the heat. Everyone's leaving. And then, finally we go, and it's me, Delaney, Will, and Sam. And, we're just walking over, chatting, introducing ourselves. Yeah.
So you four, okay. So you guys never made a, hey, this is a four that we should work together.
The four of us in that moment?
Yeah, on that walk.
No.
A lot of other groups did,
Oh, really?
including Andy's group.
Who was in Andy's group? Jess? Dan?
Andy, Mike, Dan, and Jess. Yes. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we were like the last. I feel like we were the very last group to show
You
up.
were, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were one of the first people there, and then you ended up in the last group.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other thoughts about do you want to talk about, did you see Andy?
Oh my God, I saw him. Yeah. So, oh God, I don't know if I didn't really kick myself because I don't know. So what was happening? We were standing, and I was the closest to the flag, to the banner. And I was just kind of being myself and then running my hand along the side of the flag, up and then all the way down. And then as I'm getting to the bottom, I see the little baggie at the kind of base of the flag where the pole and the flag meet. And I'm like, oh shit. And then as that's happening, as I'm running my hand down the flag, Andy is kind of walking forward. Mm-hmm. And then before anything happens, before I can react, because I see the bag, and then his hand is just reaching in. He's like, what's this? And then I'm just like, what?
He had been staring at it for a long time.
Oh, and then
as soon as your hand went over there, he was like, oh, fuck no, I can't.
Oh, okay. So he had seen it.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, because I was like, oh my God, did I call attention to this?
I know,
and then,
right?
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, and then he's like, what's this? And
do you know who saw that? So we don't have that on video, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Do you know who else saw on your tribe? Saw him?
I feel like everyone saw it because he announced
half the people
it.
Didn't see. They were
really,
yeah.
I was close to him, so he announced it essentially, and I was like, "What are you doing? This is this is an interesting choice." Yeah. So I don't remember who was, because I was kind of standing off alone-ish on the other side of the flag, whereas everyone was on the the left side of the flag. So I don't know who else saw. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of people, maybe only one, maybe two. I think Matt and Stephanie saw on the other tribe.
Yeah, they mentioned that.
Yeah. But nobody else on the other tribe saw. I think only half of you actually saw him do it, and then the announcement, some people were confused, what is he talking about right now? There was confusion.
Yeah.
He didn't need to make that. He could have just, that could have been a you and him kind of thing.
I know, whoever else saw.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I do remember on the walk back, I was like, oh,
Oh, you asked him about it?
Yeah, I was kind of he was I feel like I said, I feel like I want to try to work with Andy and then say something about him. But I was like, I'm not sure. But then on the walk back to camp, or to camp at some point, I was like, what are you going to do about that idol? Da, da, da. And then he's just like, or are you going to open it? Because he hadn't opened the little pouch yet, the package. And he's like, oh, yeah. And he's like, when I do, I'll tell you. And then I was like, yeah. Yeah. I felt like that was the only time I actually initiated some sort of something. Okay. Some sort of reaching out to somebody.
The only time?
Yeah, that's almost possible. I feel like that might be possible. Maybe I actually did when I was going to the bathrooms with Dan and Will.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe Will spoke to me first. I think he might have actually, while Dan was in the bathroom.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you could talk about anything that happened between where we left off from Andy finding the idol to this point, but when you started being approached by people and who you felt like you might be forming an alliance with or who you wanted to work with, what happened with all that on day one?
On day one, so I knew I wanted to work with Andy. I just liked his energy. He seemed like a nice guy. And then later on, he would mention things like movies or things like that, and we had those in common. I was like, oh, I like this guy. Mm-hmm. And then, like I was saying, when Dan, Will, and we all went to the porta potties together. Dan was in the porta potty, and then Will was saying how, he felt good about me, and then he said that Delaney mentioned my name to him. Right. And I was like, oh, interesting. And then when Dan came out, Will didn't like kind of initiate any kind of conversation with him, which I thought was also interesting. I was like, oh, wow, he only talked to me, but he's not bringing it up with Dan.
Yeah.
Which panned out later, and it sent me spiraling. And so I was like, you know what, maybe. But then there's something about, Will's a nice guy, but there's something about him that's very like, too smooth. Too smooth. Yeah, too smooth. Oh, and on that walk back to camp, I think that's when we sang.
It is, yes.
I've never done anything like this before, so it's like this is like a whole new experience.
I don't know
I don't know that.
You were talking about what animals.
Yeah, I asked them what animal they would, what their spirit animal is or what animal they would think themselves of. And Dan said a cat, mm-hmm. which I was like, oh, interesting, because he said he liked staying home and like sleeping and things like that. And I was like, that's an interesting choice, because it's like there's one aspect of this is how they might identify, or it might be a way of them kind of showing you what they're telling you about themselves with this, mm-hmm. or they're choosing something to tell, like, this is the kind of person I am, because we don't know each other that well. Mm-hmm. So that's what Dan was saying, that, he liked to laze around and be inside.
Right.
And then I said that...
You said a wolf.
I said a wolf. Which is actually, that's an honest thing, but then after I said it, I was like, oh no, that doesn't sound very good. But then I think I described it like, I like to be alone, but then I also like to be in a pack. Like
mm-hmm.
there's both elements of that, which actually kind of panned out
in the
opposite way, where I ended up being by myself. Well, not by myself, but feeling like I was by myself. And then Will said that he was like a golden retriever.
Yeah, and loyal.
Loyal, and I was like, that seems very like... he is golden retriever-ish, like he's very gregarious and like friendly, but then I was like, that seems really calculated to say that.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But when you're saying this to me again, I watched that scene, and maybe I'll play that during this podcast. Play a little bit of that back.
You have.
Do I have a spirit animal?
Yeah.
I do. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm like really into it. It's just kind of like a fun.
Yeah.
Like, what do I identify with?
What do you think it is?
I don't know if I want to say.
Oh.
Well, because now it's like how do I see myself?
You can't like tease the question and then not answer.
Well, yeah, you can't.
You're gonna get information from us, but not get the information yourself.
A wolf.
Wolf? Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like wolves they're alone, but then they also run in a pack. Like there's time they spend alone, but at the end of the day, like the pack's alive.
Gotcha. No, I can really get that, because it's like, I think I'm like also somebody where it's like I really value like my alone time, but then also like, I need the pack time as well. For me, I'd probably be like a cat.
A cat?
Yeah.
Super chill.
I just like, chill at home all day. That's about it. Lay around in bed. That's about everything. I don't really have one, but if there's one that has been bestowed upon me all the time, I've been told I quite frequently radiate golden retriever energy. I can see that.
I guess to translate to something that's thoughtful.
Yeah.
Chill. I'm like legitimately a I
Yeah.
just like having a good time. And I have a big policy about not like having like toxic people in my life.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Important.
So I had quite the learning lesson early in life about, sucking up to people that weren't worth sucking up to.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted friends.
Yeah.
I was a little insensitive boy, what
Yeah.
do I say? But, I've gotten smart about that now, and so chill, happy, and, like, pretty loyal. Like, I find my people.
That's what I thought. I was
Yeah.
when I think of golden retrievers, I think of loyalty.
Exactly.
Now that you're talking about it, I think all of you were being really honest. Like, that is the way all of you played. Right? Like, Dan is a cat. You are a wolf, a bit of a lone wolf, and Will was really loyal. I think, like, that's what he wanted people to think, and that is what he was doing in this game. So,
Even, I mean, it was, it's, I haven't seen it, right? But, like, I've heard certain things, and it is a little rough to hear that because I didn't trust him.
I know, yeah. Yeah. For all future Surviving Maine players, play that game, ask about I don't know if you want to call them spirit animals, whatever you want to call it.
I feel like that's
Ask
the
about
easiest
it
way.
And take people at their word. That's how you know.
What is it, Maya Angelou's like?
Yeah,
When people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. Believe them.
Okay. So after that, Will made it clear that he wanted to work with you. He also made it clear he didn't want to work with Dan. By not talking to Dan, he made that clear to you. But you didn't really fully pick up on that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I picked up on him not talking to Dan, not speaking with him. But then I was like, is he just trying to work multiple alliances? You know what I mean?
Maybe in secret, he has something with Dan.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Again, too paranoid right away.
Yeah. Too early to be so paranoid. Poor Trisha.
I know. I mean, I feel like whatever. Regrets.
But other people approached you as well that day.
I think so. Well, actually, Dan,
Right.
I don't know if I approached him or like what. We were together, and he was talking about, how some people kind of talk a lot and are always talking.
Do you think he was talking about Will?
I feel like that's totally possible, especially knowing that they had a little
They hate each other so much.
they had a little tension with each other. Like, I'm like, right now I'm like bumping my fist together. It makes sense. I think he could have been talking about Will. Like, there were, other people that spoke more often than others,
Mike was a talker. Yeah,
Mike.
Sure.
Sam talked a lot too.
Oh.
Again, none of this was in a negative way. It's just like
Yeah.
some people like to talk more than others.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that, and then I said, I'm kind of like I'm more of a quiet person as well. And then he said, yeah, I want to kind of have an alliance of, the quiet people. And then I was like, oh yeah, introvert alliance. And then he mentioned Jess.
Okay. Yeah. He really did want to work with Jess, and Jess really wanted to work with him too. And they were in that first 4 group that came up together. Huh. Yeah. I guess we'll get to that later. Okay. So that happens. And so did he mention other names like Jess or?
He mentioned Jess specifically.
Okay.
And I think that was it.
Okay. And then later, Delaney.
Maybe I said something about Andy. I might have said something
he's not
about
an introvert. Or well, he's not quiet.
He's not, but I mentioned Andy anyway.
Yeah. Delaney had approached you as well, or was it Delaney and Jess together?
It was Jelani.
It was Delaney.
It was Jelani. Yeah, I was. I think I had just done a confessional, and I was like looking at rocks on the ground. Like I was on the ground, and they walked up, and they were saying, they're like, oh yeah, we feel really good about each other. And I was, can I curse? Like,
Yeah.
I was fucking dumb. And I was like about you two about each other, or like, am I
Yeah.
like just awkward and like just clueless on how to like engage this like interaction. I'm just like about each other, like you two each other, and you're telling me like, of course they wouldn't be telling me that they feel good about each other and not include me in that scenario.
And you were looking at the ground, and Delaney was making a gesture that was
I couldn't see.
I know you weren't looking at her, so you didn't notice that she was saying, "I feel really good about us."
Yeah.
And motioning to both of you.
Oh, okay. Well, now, okay. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I like them too.
Right.
But I don't know. It's just like, is it too early to? Well, of course it wasn't too early, but it seemed like, yeah. And it was funny to me that I think they mentioned other names too of people that they wanted to include.
But maybe they hadn't mentioned Will, or you.
They did not mention Delaney. Did not mention Will.
Right.
And that made me suspicious because Will said Delaney said something about me, but she didn't mention Will. So I was like,
Yeah, she should have said, I mentioned your name to Will. Maybe she didn't want Jess to know that, though. Interesting.
yeah.
Because Delaney didn't really trust Will either. She questioned his motives as well, the same way you did.
Interesting.
But you all three liked Andy and wanted to work with Andy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And you and Jess wanted to work with Dan. And
I was kind of like, because I didn't know if I wanted to work with Dan, but it seemed like
there was an opening there.
It seemed like he was kind of already in this like group. Mm-hmm. So what I feel like as we were after, when we were walking over, like the names that were getting thrown around were us three, Andy and Dan.
Okay, and not Mike.
I don't know if I heard Mike.
Yeah, Mike was never really mentioned in anything. Until
I don't think
maybe
Mike
day
was.
2.
Yeah, which was interesting to me because for some reason I thought that him and Delaney were like a little like chummy, but
yeah, there was and Mike talked about his podcast won't come out till after this. It was interesting when you were building your camp together that Delaney and Mike had a bonding moment where like Will had been trying to put the tarp over the path in the trees, and she told Mike like that she goes camping all the time and she does this.
I remember I saw them doing that. They were like searching together in like the interior of the woods, and like that's when I was like, oh wow, they're going off together.
Right. So he was just trying to get in good with her, and she was like, I think we should put our shelter over here. They weren't talking any strategy, but he felt like he was bonding with her, like he was the one listening to her. She knew what she was talking about. Let's all listen to Delaney. And then everyone gathered pretty quickly. They weren't really alone very long. It was maybe 3-4 minutes. And then suddenly the camp was going to be there where she was.
Oh, wow. I mean, to me, it felt like enough time. I mean, I was constantly watching people.
Yeah.
And I saw them go off and like they were kind of chatting, and then I tried following them.
You did.
Well, I didn't want them to be alone for too long. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm going to look in the woods too. But I thought they were chummy, but I don't think Mike's name came up in that.
No.
It was like a 5. It felt like a 5.
And that Dan was the 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk about anything else about the first day? Any of the challenges? Any conflict with the other tribe? Or anything like that? I don't know.
The challenges on the first day were the spool, and then the Statue of Liberty situation. Is that it?
Idle hands. And then there was the ladder, like air ladder.
Oh, yeah.
It's making fire. That was the immunity challenge. Yeah.
What did I do in that one?
I think you were walking on the sticks.
No, Delaney was walking on the sticks.
Oh, yeah.
She killed that one. And I wasn't holding a stick.
You weren't.
I think I would have been working on the puzzle.
Oh, there was a puzzle.
There was a puzzle, right. And it was me, Mike, and Sam on the puzzle, I think.
And you had to flip things over, and they got a little flustered, yeah? with Flip, but they had Flip.
Yeah, I
they
think
just
so.
flip
I
it
feel
all
like
over.
somebody had mentioned that Mike got a little like.
Yeah. Everybody on the other tribe noticed that he was being really loud and like, we have to flip it over. And it didn't seem like anyone else was bothered by what he was doing. And somebody else said Sam was the one that got flustered, and I didn't think that was really accurate either. But you were on the puzzle with them,
I was on the puzzle with them, so.
and you didn't notice any.
I mean, we're just, there's urgency.
Yeah. You're all urgently
trying-
working on a puzzle. This is for
We're trying to
everybody.
win, right? So there's going to be some, louder voices and stuff.
Yeah.
I think maybe it might have been in hindsight that they mentioned that about Sam, because I think she felt a little bit of insecurity because she did I don't know if it was before that or after that. She was the solo puzzle maker, which is a big response. Oh, it was on the spool, for the spool.
Oh.
I think, right? There was only one
Yes, with
puzzle
the numbers,
person.
like pairing up numbers, I think.
And so I think she felt bad about that.
Right. That didn't even matter. It was a reward. I don't even remember what the reward was.
Neither do I.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts from day one? When you guys went back to camp, you thought the other tribe was going to tribal. Did you have any idea of who would be voted out? Who would be leaving?
I think we thought it was going to be Larry.
Oh yeah. Someone I do remember seeing someone say
But it was, I mean, yeah. But it felt like nobody could remember what his name was. Because we didn't really know anybody's
first day.
name that much. And it's just like, we know that there's this guy, and
he looked tired, not as fast as everybody else.
yeah. So it's just like, it's probably going to be him.
So were you guys not shocked to see that he wasn't there, but shocked to hear about why he had left?
Yeah. A little bit.
No thoughts about that.
Well, I mean, so we were feeling all like good because we had everything going. We had we had fire.
And you didn't even know that they didn't get flint. That
No,
they
we didn't.
Had no way of making fire that night.
No, but then people were talking about, they're probably all like uncomfortable and scrambling, and we're all warm and like
Yeah.
kumbaya at the point, I don't know about kumbaya, but like just
Right.
feeling in general like really good and like bonding with each other in some way. But yeah, I mean, we had a great shelter. I don't think that it was unsafe at all, and it wasn't. It was warm, because when I got to the other camp, it was so cold.
Really?
Yes.
Cold in that little cave they made?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they didn't have a fire pit in there. The fire pit was outside, which was actually
true.
pretty. It was a good fire pit, but like when you're sleeping inside the shelter, it's not warm. But anyways, our camp was banging.
Yeah, it was, and you had a little bit less ticks over there.
Oh, did we?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, we all had ticks.
everybody had to. It didn't really matter where you were.
Yeah.
At a certain point.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, there's one thing that I know about myself, and that's my own doing, because I don't think nobody was doing anything to make me feel this way. It was just myself, where I felt like, and I spoke of it as well, like I would kind of already distance myself, like, oh, everyone's a super fan, and I'm not, and I'm the only one.
I mean,
and everyone's talking about Survivor and like
Right.
like strategies and like this season and like what's your favorite blah, and I'm like, I can't participate in any of this conversation because I don't know anything. Like, what am I gonna I can't just make something up.
They were talking a lot about the season that had just wrapped up the day before everything started.
And so it's like it's hard to connect with people if you can't talk about what they want to talk about or what they like are super interested in, which made me feel self-conscious or a little insecure about my position. And so I think that might have also contributed to me not really reaching out to people. And
Yeah. It's just, I mean, I don't think everybody was a super fan.
I mean, Delaney wasn't
Right.
as much of but she she felt like she was, like, amidst her, her group of friends.
Right. Because
but
she
then
just
she
watches. Yeah.
Yeah, but then she was like, oh, man. But even then I felt, I don't know. Everyone had more.
Right. So you felt a little...
like an outsider.
Right. Because of that whole thing.
Yeah. And then because I wasn't eating.
Right. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so...
Keto Trisha.
Yeah, so I was on the ketogenic diet, which is basically a high-fat, very low-carb, and, like, middle-level protein diet that allows you to basically use your fat as fuel instead of, like, glucose, which most of us use because of the carbs that we eat and the sugar. And I had already been doing it. I was like doing an experiment. I've only been doing like a month or 2 months. And I was like, this is going to be perfect because I'm comfortable with fasting.
Right.
And if I just don't eat, if I load up, the day before and then I just don't eat, I'll be fine. Because I've done it before. I know what it feels like. I accidentally, like, maybe a few weeks prior, I had accidentally fasted for 24 hours. Accidentally.
You're just not hungry.
I just wasn't hungry. And so, and like I had energy still, So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for as long as possible without eating because once I eat something, I'm going to start to get hungry. Mm-hmm. Like if I ate that rice, then I would get hungry. But then, the next day when we got the strawberry reward or the fruit reward, strawberries are something I can eat because they don't have as high of sugar as other fruits. And I was like, I was still not hungry. But I felt like I had to appease the tribe because they're like, please eat. Because they're probably just, I don't know, they're probably just boggled because I don't know what challenges we went through, but I feel like there had to have been like physical challenges.
Yeah.
And I was like, not faltering.
No.
So, yeah. An outsider too, because I wasn't eating. But I was like, you guys can have more then.
Yeah, not everybody was weird about that. It was mostly just one person who was questioning it, but whatever. Okay, so where it gets interesting then is on day 2 when you guys finally have to vote somebody out. And this is the first tribal council of the season. And what challenge did you lose? I don't
remember.
have any idea. And everyone at that point had pretty much agreed, like, it should be Sam. She worked on production last year. She's played these before. She, like, would have been on production here anyway if she wasn't playing. She had been really vocal on day 1. Even in her confessionals, she was like, I don't care if I'm the first person voted out, blah, blah, blah. And then when it comes time that you guys lose, she's suddenly very invested and is crying, like, feels left out and, like, wanted to stay and play.
Oh, my God. That really felt invested. So bad.
Yeah, so...
Because she was asking, and I'm like, I don't want to lie.
Right. And so during the scramble of the way you guys ended up doing your talks before Tribal was really interesting. You all agreed to just pair up and just rotate.
Yeah.
I had never seen that, and I loved it. I was so glad that it was happening. We camera people had to scramble to make sure we were capturing everything. And it was really fun to film. I'm sure it was very stressful to do, especially when the second person you talk to is Dan, and he says, your name just got thrown out.
Yeah, by Will.
So what happened there?
It's funny because it's like I don't remember it all too much. But yeah, I talked with Dan. He's like, oh, so Will and I talked, and, he threw your name out there. And I forgot the reasoning that Dan
Challenge
gave Will.
strength.
Was it challenge strength?
Yeah, and you were like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, so he said that. That's all I can remember. Maybe it was traumatic, so I blocked it. Yeah, I mean, I just remember that, and then I spoke with Will, and he said that Dan's the one that threw my name out.
Right.
And I'm like, who am I supposed to believe in this scenario? Dan, who is potentially in an alliance and seems kind of, cat-like.
Right.
Or Will, who is very smooth.
Right.
And says he is loyal.
Right.
But like when people say they have a certain quality that's like really good and positive and fits the scenario, then it's like, I need to see it. Like you can't tell me that. Like it needs to be shown. And it was too early, right? So then I didn't know. And I was like, who do I believe? And then other names started getting thrown out. Like people, we started like doing more than 2 people. And we're like, who are we going to do? And then like other names started getting thrown out. Like, oh, maybe we should vote out Dan.
Yes.
I think Mike said that. I'm not sure. And then I started feeling more comfortable because it seemed like even though my name was thrown out, it kind of like got thrown back in.
Right.
And then we just ended up going with Sam.
Yeah. It was unanimous, right? Sam voted for Dan, right? Or did she
I
vote
think
for Dan?
I think she did.
Yeah.
Because maybe that was the story that we were going to vote for Dan.
It was, yeah. Right. Okay. So coming out of that, then you ended up trusting Dan rather than Will.
I don't know if I ended up trusting Dan.
You were still wary of both of them.
I mean, I was maybe neutral on Dan, but suspicious of Will.
Yeah. You got it a little bit backwards, I guess.
I absolutely did, I think.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell even from watching it all unfold. Dan did say your name, but it was that Will had narrowed it down to you and like whatever their weird little talk was. All the people they were talking about a bit about being like big strengths and challenges. Will didn't mention Dan's name because he's talking to Dan, but he thinks Dan is the weakest.
What about his athletic genes?
I can't wait to get to that footage. Oh my god. But
I mean, I
Dan
kind of
says
agree with
Trisha.
that.
Dan says, "Oh, so Trisha," and Will's like, "Okay."
Oh, so it's
Bit
like he tricked
confused.
him.
Yeah, Dan.
He put his word. He
Dan's
put it in
whole
his mouth.
plan was to set up Will to say a name that nobody else wanted. That's why he didn't say Sam. It was like the 2 of you were the last ones left of everyone they had gone through.
Oh.
And so he was like, okay, so then Trisha? And Dan was like, and Will was like, oh, okay. Because Will was trying to get Dan to say Sam.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah. So Dan was setting up Will so that he could try to get people to vote out Will.
Oh.
And because of the way the conversation went, it ended up being your name that was thrown out, but you were never in any danger. Okay, let's just a couple more things. So, coming out of that tribal council, you feel a little bit more paranoid now. Is this correct? That your name has been out there, but you didn't get any votes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you and do you feel? What type of way do you feel about the 4 people in your core 4? That everyone in the confessionals at this point, this is where I am in the footage. You, Dan, Delaney, Jess are all saying each other's names as being your core alliance. How do you
Even Dan is saying that?
Sorry,
Andy. Okay, because I was
Delaney,
like, Dan
Jess.
saying that didn't.
No.
Okay.
Dan is only talking about Jess, really. And Jess is talking about 5, including Dan.
Including Dan. Well, okay.
Delaney's talking about a 5, including, but she can't decide between Will or Mike.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I did not feel I felt on shaky ground totally because I had spoken just once with Andy that one time.
Right.
And then Jess and Delaney that one time. And then nothing ever. It's because I was being like, hard to get or something. I wasn't doing it.
Fucking Scorpio nature of being mysterious.
I wasn't trying to be mysterious.
I know, you don't have to try. This is how we are.
I was just, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to approach people. Like, I don't know how to approach people. It's funny because when Jess and Delaney came up to me that, when they said, when they're like, oh, I feel good about this. Mm-hmm. We started talking about, like, it's like kind of like dating where you're like, oh, I'm like interested in you, or like I like you, like how do you feel, like that kind of thing. And it is kind of, I feel like it is kind of like that, like, but you also don't want to, there's like this other element of not wanting to show your cards. Mm-hmm. So, but after that, I don't think there was no solidification of that alliance. Mm-hmm. And so I obviously I wish I did something, but if anybody had like done anything additional, it would have been like, okay,
right
now I feel
locked in.
That I'm locked in.
That's too bad. I mean, so from that point till the swap, it wasn't that much time. There was,
we're just challenge.
There was the reward challenge where you got the fruit. Then there was, right? That was before, because Sam wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
And then there was the immunity challenge where you guys won, and that's when Kaya gets voted out. Mm-hmm. But that was a long time, actually. You guys ended up sleeping at your camp while that was all going on. And I have video of Mike snoring, because it was a pretty long time.
Uh-huh.
Because they let the Green Tribe go make rice. So they had like an hour and a half before they went to tribal. So you guys must have had like 2 hours almost where you were just hanging out at your camp. Mm-hmm. And so people weren't going off and
I think people might have been.
Mm-hmm.
I think they didn't. But I didn't, like a dumbass. I do remember that first night at camp though, like it's like I'm always like trying to observe instead of like take action, and that's like my downfall, because during the at night, like there are times when I would wake up because it's not the most comfortable, like sleeping with a root up your back,
and you heard
and I would hear voices, and I'm like trying to like not let them know that I'm awake, but like straining to hear, and sometimes they're talking so low, but it's probably just because they don't want to wake people up.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, are they trying to strategize right now? Because they're like, blah, 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 blah.
Just to let you know, because I do know what was going on because of the confessionals from the next morning, there was no strategy talk at all.
I can't believe it.
It was Sam and Andy, and then later on, Mike woke up.
Yeah.
And they were, and I think one other person, Dan. And there was not a
I remember.
Of strategy.
I mean, I know Sam was up like all night.
Yeah, she did not sleep at all.
I mean, she was tending the fire, which was really nice. And then I remember hearing or seeing Dan, and then also Mike. I don't remember Andy. But then I was thinking back to last season where
Brandon,
Jazzy, and Cameron, they stayed up all night, and like that was a huge bonding thing for them.
Right.
And then they went to the end together.
Yeah, Final Four.
So.
Yeah, that didn't happen because Sam was the one up all night, and she ended up being the first voted out. Mm-hmm. But in her confessional, she talked a lot about how all the people that woke up and talked with her, and that there was no strategy talk, and she was a little disappointed, but that she felt good about Andy because they had talked the most at night, but it was all just personal stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's funny. That other people kind of talked about how waking up and hearing voices too, but not being able to figure out who it was.
Yeah, I mean, I was like right there though, because I was pretty close. I was like
next to you.
I was pretty close to the fire. So was Delaney. It was like Delaney, me, and then where Sam would have been, and then Dan I think was on the other side of Sam. But then so I could see that their sleeping bags were empty. And then sometimes I would like kind of like move my head up so I could see.
That's funny.
And then Mike's voice is a little bit more distinct.
Yeah.
Even if it's low.
Yeah.
So I could hear him, but none of the actual words. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then that day 2, you're just doing challenge, and then there's no strategy talk for those hours at camp, and then
For me, at least. I don't know what was going on with other people.
yeah, I wonder. I haven't got to that point yet. And then there's the swap, and you end up. I mean, you weren't picked last. You should feel good about where you were picked, and the unfortunate part is that you were on an even tribe of 3 and 3.
Yeah.
Right?
I was kind of sad because who were the captains again? Will?
Was it Will and Andy?
I don't think it was Andy. I think it might have been Mike.
Yes, correct. Will and Mike.
Yeah, and I thought, well, I guess Mike didn't really care for me, but I thought he was going to pick me, but then I think he picked Jess instead or
That makes sense. Yeah,
somebody. Yeah, I think.
he had to have picked Jess.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Will picked you and Delaney.
Yeah. But like in terms of like what order.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh. Because I wanted to be on that tribe.
Why? Just when it finalized, you were like, oh, I wish I had been on that tribe, or
Yeah.
at the beginning you wanted to be on Mike's tribe.
I think at the beginning too.
Because you didn't trust Will, and you had a
Right.
better feeling about Mike, and you like had more in common with him and had better conversations with him. That's what it seemed.
Sure, yeah. And I think by that time he had already picked Andy too.
Like. Okay, yeah, and you definitely wanted to work with Andy. Yeah.
So
And then in the end, they end up having the majority. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're in a better position overall.
and they got to go back to our camp.
Yeah. To skip ahead, did you ever even think about this? Were you disappointed that they didn't throw a challenge? Wait, let me think about this more. No, they couldn't have. Yes, they could have. Were you disappointed that they didn't throw a challenge? Because they had 2 green people that they could vote out.
Oh.
They lost that first one and voted out Caitlin. Then they got Stephanie. So they had Stephanie and John. Then you guys lost. They won. If they had lost, they could have just voted out Stephanie.
Yeah.
That saves one of you guys, because it's a little bit dangerous to have a 3 and 3.
I mean, if it saves one of us, if it saves one of us, it's actually saved all of us.
Right, exactly. And normally that would be a thing they would at least talk about. I don't know if they did or not.
I mean, that wouldn't have. I'm honest, that wouldn't have crossed my mind.
Okay,
it didn't
okay.
cross my mind that they could do that.
Yeah.
Maybe it got brought up later, like in Ponderosa or something, but that's already after, I'm not sure, but that would have been nice.
I know, yeah. As a non-huge Survivor fan, it makes sense that it wouldn't come to mind as like an immediate thought, like they need to throw these challenges.
Yeah, so they could vote out these other people.
Right.
I can't even think about like what would have happened, like if they.
Yeah, because maybe you win the next one as well, and they have to vote out one of their own, right? Because then there's 4 of them. Or was it no? Yeah, they didn't merge until right after that.
I mean, I don't know if I would have been the next one after that. Well,
There are
probably.
many variables.
There are many variables.
Because maybe you would have had time to talk to Justin.
I might have had time to talk to Justin, or had the courage to talk to Justin, or felt like more something. Oh God, that was just like that's probably the biggest regret I have. Actually.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Biggest regret for you in the game was not talking to Justin.
Was not talking to Justin, because after the swap, Will's telling me, I remember he just brings me into one of his confessionals and he's like, I want it to be like you, me, and Delaney to the end. And I was like, okay.
Why were you so questioning that? It's a normal thing to say.
I know, but I mean, it's a normal thing to say, but like, it's just, I don't know. I'm just a weirdo. Also because I didn't, also because I felt like he could be telling the truth. But like I wouldn't want to go with them.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to go with them to the end because I wouldn't win in that I wouldn't win in that scenario.
See, Trisha knows what she's talking about.
I didn't want to. I mean, I was saying like, oh, I'm not going to be their goat. I mean, I guess it wouldn't have been. I guess I wouldn't have been like a goat, but like I wouldn't win against them.
Right.
So I didn't want to go with them, and so I had thought like, maybe I can switch, maybe I can flip, and then by the merge, I can like maybe rejoin with my own tribe. If we somehow like we flip and then we get out, Delaney or Will.
Wow. So if you had talked to Justin or like made something, some comment to Matt even or Mary Ellen, like, hey, I'm willing to flip.
Yeah.
Like Delaney's a big threat. You would have gone after Delaney.
I would have. I mean, I really liked her.
Yeah. And everyone else did.
And everyone else did too.
That.
And I knew that. And so I would have gone after her.
Wow. A villain of the season. We missed it. Yes.
Yeah, that would have been a true wolf move, right?
It would have, yeah.
But that's what I was thinking. Like, Delaney's the biggest threat.
Yeah.
She was great in challenges. She has a great personality, right? And she didn't seem like she was playing a kind of dirty game, And so that's me, Will, and Delaney. Delaney wins.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I thought, maybe I can, exactly what I just said, maybe I can flip and then flip again.
So had you thought about this before you were voted out?
Yes, I had.
Dude, what the
I talked about it to you, I think. I mentioned it.
Really? In a
yes.
Oh, no.
I did. And
listen, I don't remember anything.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I didn't, but I know I had the thought.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I could make a big move. Well, and then I was like, maybe it's not that big a move. And you're like, that would be a big move.
Oh, shit.
Because I wanted to make a big move, but then I didn't have the ovaries to do it.
Yeah. Anything before the merge is never going to be a huge move because it's only a big move after merge because everybody gets to see it. Right. I mean, it is a big move. It would have been a huge thing. Obviously would have changed the game enormously.
It would have. And I just just so many times because if I had and I kind of did talk to Justin a little bit.
What was that like?
I don't know. I was just kind of feeling him out. We were just kind of like, felt like we were dancing around. Yeah. But what really felt more clear was that Will really wanted to work with Matt, and Matt was very convincing on wanting to work with us.
Tell me more about that, because so weird. So Matt was really good.
I know.
At all of that.
Yeah.
And he was just as well liked as Delaney the entire time by everyone. Not as good in challenges. Throwing up isn't good.
Yeah.
So tell me about how those conversations with Matt went and what was going on with that?
Well, sometimes it would be the four of us. Will, Delaney, me, and Matt. And Will and Delaney would more so talk in these scenarios. I would just be there because I wasn't super invested in. It's basically they were gonna do something and I was just gonna go along with it. I think, because that was my only option, unless I did the flip. But then Matt was just like, I feel really good with you guys. I was like, Will, you're like the first person that said like I want to work with you. Like when I was on my other tribe, like I felt like I was on the outs and. Things like that.
Lie. Good lie.
And he was he was convincing.
Yeah.
And then they were asking about Justin and Mary Ellen, and he said, and they both kind of like positioned Justin as being like they're not as close with Justin as they are with each other, Mary Ellen and Matt. And so then I was like, oh, I don't know if I can go with Justin then, like,
Right.
because he doesn't seem like he has a, strong position in his own tribe.
How brilliant of Matt to do that. Matt was in an alliance, a strong one with Justin, Steph, and Mary Ellen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wild.
Yeah, and so like, I mean, masterful, right? Because
Yeah.
because if I had just any inkling that Justin had a stronger position, I feel like I might have been more willing to. I would have been more willing to talk with him.
Fucking Matt.
Yeah, and like it just, yeah.
Okay. So let's go through what you would have done if you could have done things differently. What would have happened on that first night with your swap tribe? Was it at night when it happened? No, it was in the middle of the day, right?
It was in the day.
But you had time together where you could talk. So what would have happened if you had, looking back with 2020 vision?
I mean, I would have talked to Justin and I would have said that I'm willing to flip and vote out either Will or Delaney. Mm-hmm. I would have wanted Will to be voted out, actually, kind of.
Would you have named that name? Would you have named names?
I would probably let them name the name.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad to hear that. Because Justin and Will are friends in real life. Mm-hmm. You would have never...
And Matt, and I think Matt wouldn't have wanted to vote Will out either.
No, absolutely not.
So, and when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, Delaney was clearly the more obvious threat. Mm-hmm. And so it would be good to get her out at that point. So I would have been fine with either of them going home.
So the conversation would have been like, hey,
I'm willing to flip.
I want to get out a threat. I'll work with you guys to get out a threat from my tribe. Mm-hmm. And just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And let them decide who the threat is. They would have probably asked you, like, Justin is very savvy. He would have been like, who's the bigger threat? Who's more well-liked over there?
Yeah.
Right?
And I would have said Delaney.
Yeah.
Justin, I spoke to Justin afterward and he said he wouldn't have voted out Will.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, I mean, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't against voting out Delaney. So I would have been like, okay, that's, because also, logically, it's also the right move.
It is, yeah.
So I would have done that.
I do remember you saying that in a confessional. I didn't want it to happen because I wanted the Women's Alliance, but like I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
Just like, okay.
I just felt like that would have been cool, but like I wanted to get as far as possible. And if I didn't rule myself out of getting to the end. Mm-hmm. And so I was wanting to think like, who would I want to be with, but also beat? But more so, who would I be able to beat?
Who would you, like, ideally, at that point, knowing what you knew at that point, would you want to, at that point.
At that point, I don't know.
Because everything else you learned came from outside of the game, so you had more.
I think so, yeah. That's hard to say, but I feel like Jess.
Okay. Yeah.
And maybe Andy.
Huh.
Jess and Andy.
I think your chances would have been great. Okay, so it was not just about who you could beat, but also who you really thought you could work with and trust.
Yeah.
Trisha, you need to play again.
So am I really a villain?
If you vote out my favorite player, you're a villain.
So I don't play D&D, but they have these different alignments like chaotic good, chaotic neutral, or like, and what I've been told and what I kind of have like tested as, if you is true neutral.
Oh wow.
So
isn't that like the best thing to be in?
I don't know if it's the in a game like what?
Like Survivor.
Oh, I don't know. You tell me.
Oh no, that to me that seems true neutral. Seems like you're just doing the absolute best move for your own self possible. Of any move you can make, you're doing the best thing for yourself without any emotion, right? Yeah, you're like, and Trisha's nodding. She has raised her little eyebrow.
I mean, I don't think I'm not a non-emotional person, and that sounds really
you're not.
individualistic. But I guess you kind of have
In
to. You have to
Survivor,
be that
yeah,
way.
It is. It's a game.
It is a game. But yeah, I mean, I would want. I wouldn't want to. If you're saying I would easily beat somebody, I don't know if I'd necessarily want that.
I mean, you couldn't have trusted those people.
I couldn't have trusted. No, I couldn't have.
So the
And
best thing for you in a game is to work with people who you trust, who can get you further, help you go further, and also you can beat them in the
potentially.
end.
You
Right.
know, they easily could also.
chance.
They could have had a good chance of beating me as well, but like. You know, Delaney, no.
Right.
But them, I felt like it was a little bit more. There was a closer possibility, and so that's who I would want. That's why I would choose them to the end.
That's a fantastic strategy. I think, yeah, it could have worked out well for you.
Yeah. So going back to the Justin thing,
Yeah,
there were so many opportunities that I just like. So during the night before the day I got voted out, I was like so cold, and it was like the old, I don't even remember her name, Azaban. It was the 3 Azaban, so me, Will, and Delaney inside their little shelter with this like weak ass fire. And then were you the 3 that built that little mini fire in the? Yeah.
That's so funny.
And then I think Mary Ellen was in there in the beginning, but then she migrated to the outside because that fire was like way better.
Yeah.
And it was way warm, and I was so cold. And then eventually I couldn't sleep anymore. And so I tried to tend the fire for them because for my old tribe because they seemed sleeping. And so I wanted the fire to keep going for them. And then Justin was also awake. And so we were just sitting there.
No.
In silence.
No,
In silence.
No.
But like
why
again,
you got voted out because you sat in silence. Oh my god.
I know, but like I didn't. But all this kind of like all the factors. Like Matt.
No, Matt was too masterful.
I know. I couldn't. There's no way. I would have. It would have been like. It would, in my mind, right? Knowing what I knew then, it would have been a huge risk.
Yeah.
It's like it's not a calculated risk. It would have been like a really big risk that didn't feel like it was would actually pan out because it's like we already decided on Justin. Everyone seemed on board. Matt seemed really
made no sense.
It wouldn't have made sense
at that point because you had already talked about voting him out, and you thought Matt and Marilyn wanted to get him out,
and not that necessarily they were like, you know, anxious to do so, but that they were willing to do so because they both wanted to keep going forward.
Right. They didn't want to go to rocks. They didn't want to have a tie.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man.
And then so this is daytime. I think we were getting our stuff to go to tribal.
Okay.
I think. And then Justin's asking like, you know, just let me know if I'm the one to go. And then in my mind, I was like, I kind of wanted to tell him.
Damn.
Like, but I didn't. Because it's like, in hindsight, it's like, what difference would have made if I told him?
Have you talked to him about it?
I don't know if I asked him that question. But he did say this to me. It's like a single file like path. And I'm walking into, getting very close to the shelter. And he's behind me, and he says something like, Trisha, if you need anything, something like that. Not like I got your back, but it was just like basically it felt like if you want to do something.
Oh. Wow.
He said my name, and then he said something like, you know, if you need anything or want something, and I was like. And I'm like, oh, I should tell him that he's going to get voted out. I don't know if he had the idol by that point.
He did. Wait, when was this?
This is before
into camp.
Before we're getting our stuff. We're gathering our stuff. And I could be remembering this wrong, but I think we're gathering our stuff so we can go to tribal.
Oh, yeah. He had the idol. They had a whole plan. Why would he say that to you? Because he told them, okay, I'm gonna vote for Trisha. Maybe he wasn't all that set on it. Maybe he was willing to vote. I mean, it's not like he talked to Delaney either. He just got a better feeling from her. Maybe because she smiles more. That makes a big
I mean, it
difference.
does. And
Yeah.
it's, I feel like I have a nice smile, but I don't offer it enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said that. And, I think about it every night.
No, she can't. Sleepless nights for 2
Yeah.
months thinking about Justin. Oh, what could I have said to Justin?
Yeah. And so that, oh God. And now knowing that he already had the idol at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my mind, I'm like, am I making this up? But like, I remember it so clearly and it was like, why is he saying this? And I'm like, what do I do? Like, I can't do anything right now. It just doesn't make sense. That's what I said over in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense to do something, to try to go with Justin or whatever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense right now.
No, the only thing with the information that you had, the only real thing that you could have done was talk to Justin before you ever talked to Matt, right? That's the only actual thing that makes sense.
But that was, I don't know if that was ever possible. Like,
Right.
I don't know if that would have happened.
Right.
Because as soon as Matt got onto our tribe, Will was like, I'm feeling so good about you. Like, it was right then when we're at the flags. So there.
Damn. Will ruined your game. Just kidding, Will. Sorry.
Yeah, so maybe I would have just had to have been taking a crazy risk.
Yeah.
That didn't make
It
sense.
didn't make any sense. It wouldn't have made any sense for you to do that.
It would have just been a crazy, like,
So you
move.
can't beat yourself up over. You can't have regrets when it was completely out of your control. You thought you were doing the best thing for your game. It just, there's other people lied to you, and that's why you ended up getting voted out. And it's not even that Matt was trying to target you in any way. He didn't care which of you left out of you and Delaney.
I mean, I appreciate that, but I feel like there are things I could have done with my own game, not necessarily with that move, but done in my own, like, to talk to people or be like more inviting, so people would be more willing to talk to me,
come to you,
come
yeah.
to me.
Because you, being how you are,
Excuse me,
being how you are, Trisha, you have to be the one
to do
to
it.
do it because
Right.
of you seem to have a wall up in a way, or you seem very quiet. I've never thought of, like, me and Trisha, by the way, have been friends for like 12 years or more. 12, almost 13 years. 2009 I met you.
Yeah.
So I think of you as a outgoing, talkative person, and watching you with all those other people not being able to interact, I was like, oh my gosh, Trisha's kind of quiet. I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody listens to this, I think they might be surprised
By how much you're talking? Or what? By what?
by how much I'm talking and maybe like my personality.
Huh.
Well, I mean, if I was quiet, so like I
Yeah.
am talking quite a lot.
Yeah. And people weren't aware of all the things that are going on in your head and the thoughts you're having about them.
Yeah. But if I were warmer, because Justin
Yeah.
said it too. He's like, you're really quiet. Like, this is afterward, obviously.
Yeah.
You're really quiet, but like when you're laughing and engaging with the group, then then you're a really likable person. And so if you just change that about your game, then you could be like a whatever. He said silent assassin or something like that.
Oh, that's so funny. A silent assassin. You definitely could be, yeah.
But so I feel like if I had just even a slight shift in the way that I
Yeah.
kind of like played my
Presentation
game
of
as a presentation of self. What is that? Goffman?
These are a couple of sociology nerds. Excuse that comment. Look up Irving Goffman.
Yeah, if I had changed that, then something might have altered the situation, so I wouldn't have to be the one to take the big risk. That it would have been a smaller risk for someone else, like Justin, to be like, "Are you willing?" Like,
Okay. So I mean, I think we can finish this tonight because we're already at the point where
I get voted out.
At Tribal, any thoughts? Delaney approaches you and Will about a plan B just in case somebody has an idol, in case Justin has an idol specifically, and
Will like dismissed it right away. Like, we don't need it, and I probably just laid down, didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But then I remember this too. It's like all these little like small things that they just kind of float by and they don't register until later. Where we're walking to Tribal, and then Delaney's I feel like she might be just talking to herself. Because we weren't next to each other. She was behind me, and she said something like, maybe we need a backup plan.
Yes.
And then again, I just didn't bite the...
Yeah. That's a regret to have.
That
too.
is a regret. Because it's like if any of us had voted...
Yeah, just one person.
Yeah.
Just one person had to vote for anyone else. Because you were thinking that Matt and Mary Ellen would be voting with you, which they did. So if two of you had voted for Matt or Mary Ellen, they would be gone instead. If one of you had, there would be a re-vote, and you'd probably have a tie. And you might go to Rocks. If you go to Rocks, you're safe. You and Justin and whoever you vote for are safe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the possibilities are endless if if you had done one thing differently.
Yeah.
So when Delaney said, what about a backup plan? Will dismisses it, and you're just like silent, nothing.
Blah.
Yeah.
Just being a follower.
I was kind of hoping Delaney would really ponder that and just vote for just throw a vote on Mary Ellen. I was really hoping that would happen, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard her say it too.
Yeah.
And I did think about it. Not voting for someone else, but just thinking about
what
would we do?
It would have been epic. Anyway, that's a wild thing to think about or do. Like Will's dismissal of it makes sense knowing what he knew at the time. Kind of. And then again, it's like if you're a fan of Survivor, you
always have a backup plan.
What are you doing? You have the numbers. Throw one vote. If there's a possibility Justin has an idol, have one person vote for someone else. It's not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah, no.
Okay, well. So how did you feel being voted out? I was sad, but I was also so happy that Liza had already decided that was going to be when the jury starts, because she needed an odd number of people in the jury or something, or for some reason, right before the swap, Addison said to Liza, like, I think we need to have the jury at this point instead of the merge, right?
Yeah.
So they had worked out the math together, and I was so glad that you had at least made jury. Although I was sad I couldn't get you to film with us, have another camera person.
Yeah. I mean, it was a surprise.
Yeah. So when she snuffs your torch, I think, or maybe when she reads the last vote, she says the first member of the jury.
Yeah.
How did you feel at that when she said that? Were you surprised?
No.
You didn't notice, or you
I noticed. I
did? Okay.
didn't think about when it was going to happen.
Right, okay.
So I was like, okay, cool. It wasn't any big like reveal or like, oh my gosh, like this. Yeah, I didn't know when that usually happens, like in the game, so I didn't anticipate it being one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Something I do remember, of course, is like on my way to get the torch snuff, like I dropped my water bottle, so it was like this huge fumble on the way over.
I'll edit that out.
Yeah, so I don't know how I felt about it, because it's like it's not a blind side necessarily. Like,
Right.
It just,
Yeah, you were idled out.
yeah.
Yeah. That's different from everybody lying to you,
Yeah.
Only 3 people I do.
Then I started to think like, oh my God, did they know it was going to happen? Like, did
Yeah,
they
I remember
know?
you saying that to me, like, I think Will and Delaney knew too. And I was like, I'm not
Paranoia.
talking to you. Yeah.
But they didn't know.
They did not, yeah.
I think my final thought is to like, for myself, like to just relax more into it and not be as paranoid. And to have a little bit more courage to do things, to take risks and approach people.
Yeah, because you can't change your level of outgoingness and
how positive I am, or how like I can't change my personality. And this, my personality
is a great personality.
Thank you. I like to think so too. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, like when I'm in these situations, like, oh, my personality is very like subdued, but that's me, but this is also me.
Yes.
And so it's like, how am I going to bring that person into this scenario?
And knowing what you know about yourself, how can you play? You know that you need to be the one to approach people.
Yeah.
Because you can't be the one that magnetizes people into.
No. Or maybe if I was a little bit different, like and relaxed more, then maybe it would be a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then
you
I
were
could
very guarded in some of the conversations you had, maybe unnecessarily sometimes.
Yeah. So maybe I would be able to pull people in more.
Yeah. Just by being a little bit more open. Good lessons.
Yeah. Life lessons from Surviving Maine.
Okay. Trisha, thank you so much for sitting here with me for an hour and a half and talking about your experience on Surviving Maine.
Thank you.
We will be hanging out more later because we're friends.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. That was my interview with Trisha. So much fun talking to her, obviously. And I really hope she plays another one of these things. I really want to see her try that again. Please tune in this Thursday, February 9th, when I will be back with the player voted out of episode 7 of Surviving Maine Season 3.